Funding for the Our Town podcast is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota, and the members of KSMQ Public Television. Thank you.
This is Danielle Teal with Our Town Podcast, KSMQ Public Television, and I'm with Nick Campion. He is with the Rochester City Council. I'm excited to have you as a guest, Nick. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. So people are going to wonder why you're in your office and why I'm in mine. We're going to give them a little bit of background, but we did have an interview time slated with you a week or so ago, and we had to pivot that. So can you explain why?
Sure. So again, thank you for having me today. Really excited to be here, and thanks for being so flexible. One of the challenges we're facing right now is the COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus outbreak. Probably not news to anyone listening to the podcast, but as of our first scheduled time, it was kind of just starting to become influence and impact schedules locally. I had developed a head cold, and so rather than maybe risk certainly your health, but really the general public's health by venturing out, just decided that it might be better to reschedule, especially because if we're asking everyone to make personal changes to their schedules and to adjust how they're caring about their daily business, it's important that we all take it equally seriously. So I've been really grateful for your willingness to be flexible in how this works. And we're all figuring out how to be a little bit more flexible in our daily lives, and maybe have to measure a little bit of the professional and representative roles with being a parent, as our kids are now home daily and stuff like
Right.
that. So just a lot of changes all at once.
Yes, and I appreciate you being remote as well, so that I didn't get sick when we were going through that. So I appreciate you giving me a heads up on that and being able to pivot and do something different here. So it's interesting because what are we, day 4 in the quarantine? Is that it, or day 5?
Yeah.
And I've been home. Today's the first day I've put makeup on, specifically for this reason. Has anything kind of changed for you in your home as you've been quarantined in your family? What are some things you're noticing?
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine that a day in the life of a local elected official deals with a lot of face-to-face meetings and handshakes and talking through policy and meeting with constituency groups. There have been some pretty significant changes. I mean, I have a 4-month-old, and I also have some extended family members with some chronic illness that I'm very worried about. So I would say I was probably the tip of the spear in terms of social distancing. I was really starting that before it became super prevalent. And my theory was always, I can make some short-term sacrifices to make sure that we're protecting the community, and especially protecting those people that I care so deeply about. And so I think, things have changed. Certainly getting used to having my 2 school-age kids running around like a madhouse has been a little bit of a challenge. But in terms of the operations of the city, I think one of the things I'm most proud of is like the modernization of our operation has really brought people in-house that are willing to be flexible and to start firing up all of those governmental capacities for dealing with emergencies. We're all going digital. Like we're having these, we're using conference call software and getting people kind of marshaled around the appropriate resources. I have not seen the engine fire so efficiently in some time, but people are taking it seriously. And I think in our community, that's not much of a surprise with how medically sound and broad and deep our knowledge is, that we take these things very seriously. So it's been, in many ways, that's been really reassuring to me that in the time of need, when we needed it, things are moving.
Do you think that the infrastructure that's in place is readily able to support this indefinitely? I mean, we don't know a timeline, so it could be 3 weeks, it could be, 6 months, we're hearing. Do you think that, the internet that we have, all of this digitally will be able to support it?
I mean, I think we're in uncharted territory. I mean,
Right.
there's nothing to compare this to. So if I were to say here and tell everyone on this call that we are not going to hit road bumps, I think I deserve to be questioned pretty deep. I think what I will say is I've been very, I'm very optimistic that we're going to have the leadership at all levels of our community, whether that's the city hall, if that's business, if that's nonprofit. We're going to have all those different levels of leadership engaging on this at the same time. And that to me is the best case scenario. Will we have challenges with charter supporting 100,000 people Netflixing every night and binge watching television? That could be a problem. We may have to figure out how to challenge that. But all I know is if we tackle things kind of in their kind of public safety order, we're gonna make as best a decision as possible. And we're gonna make it as far as we can. I think, yeah, I'm optimistic we're taking it seriously. I'm optimistic I'm seeing Mayo, certainly the tip of the spear in terms of preparing the COVID-19 response. I'm very proud of the way our community is reacting. I've seen some of the hoarding stuff going on. I think we're starting to get our hands wrapped around that. People are starting to maybe get some calmer nerves about them, about what is a priority, what isn't a priority, where can we focus. So overall, I'm very heartened by the response I've seen. I think that's for in all reality, that's taken 100% of the mind share of all of the government for the past probably 7 days. Has been, what are we doing? How are we reacting? What are our next steps? How do we be prepared? So it's just pervasive. It's healthy. It's what we need to be doing in a time of crisis like this.
Yeah, and I've also been impressed with the collaborative effort between all the sectors and entities, and how supporting people in the community. And one of those is the small businesses. There's concern there that they're going to be able to stay afloat. What are your thoughts on that? And then we're going to move on to other stuff besides COVID-19, but just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I had several calls with local restaurants and bars and other businesses that have been calling me, kind of wondering what the next step is. And we're in it together. I mean, I'll tell you, this community really doesn't function without many of those small businesses that provide critical services. I mean, they are the reason people feel comfortable when they're getting their treatment at Mayo. They're the reason people make this their home after treatment. I think that there's our future is shared. So the idea that me personally, as someone who's invested their life in this community, I'm not leaving them behind. We're not leaving them behind. I'll be here as a resource. We're going to work together to keep everyone we can functioning. And by no means does that mean it's going to be easy. I mean, that means me going out with 2 bottles of hand sanitizer and one of those non-procedural masks to try and grab a takeout pizza to make sure that my local pizza joint knows that I care about them. That to me is critical. It means buying gift cards. I mean, there are a lot of places, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go ahead and put a advertisement in there for all of our local businesses. There are a lot of places that are figuring out how to make things work, and we need to figure out how to support them, because in a few months time, hopefully when this is kind of calmed, I want those places here. I want them to be here to support my kids and to be a place for my family to enjoy. So I would just call on everyone, if you're healthy, there's 2 things I really would ask. One, donate blood. Figure out how to donate blood. It's a safe and clean way that you can participate in the restorative effort that's going on in your community, and two, try and find a way to support those local businesses that you care so much about. I know not everyone's going to be in a position, but if you are, your dollars are going to go further now than they've ever gone before in keeping these businesses afloat. So we would all, as a community, appreciate it.
Well, I think everybody's going to appreciate that message. So thank you very much for sharing that. And at the end of the show, I'm going to ask you what Netflix shows you're binge watching. Okay, so let's move on to some topics that concern the community. And I think, I'm curious if some of these are shelved right now while everybody pivots to support the COVID-19 efforts, or if it's still full steam ahead when it comes to this. But the Civic Theater, there's a lot around that, and I know that decisions were going to be made as far as what to do with the Civic Theater and what the future looks like for the Civic Theater and the public use of funds. So I'm wondering, what is the status of that right now, and what are your thoughts? How do you make these decisions?
Yeah, I will say there's probably not a single area you can ask me about that isn't impacted right now. We're just, the size and scale of what we're being challenged with is putting everything, reprioritizing our entire government, just whole stop. That's probably the safest answer. I would say in terms of the Civic Theater, it's just a hard time to get an honest evaluation. They're not really able to run shows right now. I think what they're going to continue to experience is, just like any small business, this shutdown is going to hit them probably the same way it hits all of the other community theater organizations, movie theaters, all those entertainment industries are going to be hit pretty hard. There's no dodging the fact, and it's my job as the chair of the outside agency oversight that we're there to ensure that there's financial clarity about the status of any organization that the city funds, and every taxpayer deserves to have that level of comfort about where their tax dollars are. And I would say that for the most part, I've not met many of the employees or the supporters or the board members of the Civic Theater that would try and pretend things were great.
Right.
I think there's been concern, and we just happen to shine a really bright light on it. I think I stopped short of this idea that we want to see the organization shuttered. That to me is something that if that happens, if that's the outcome, I think it hurts everyone. I think it might give opportunity to some, it might hurt others. I think that is a practical outcome of what could happen, but I don't want to be seen, and I want people to understand that I'm not working to shutter these organizations. I'm working to make sure that the public trust in where the dollars are going is maintained. To me, it's really important that when someone asks me, we're making an investment in 125 Live, how are my dollars being spent, that when we have articulated that's what's executed, because otherwise everyone questions everything and we stop having any trust in how our taxes are being spent. That to me is the thing we're trying to protect. I do understand, and I'm sure some of your listeners will be interested, the arts are an important part of what makes a city culturally vibrant. So I don't think this isn't a crusade against art spending or a crusade against culture. It's more making sure that we have a neat and kind of tidy relationship where the city isn't involved in the mission, but can trust that the dollars that are being contributed are going to where the city thinks they should be going. And that really, in a nutshell, is where I think that will end. I think that there's just a temporary pause on everything because whole transparency is really important. We're asking all of our city employees basically to get engaged with part. If your day-to-day work is being interrupted, we're creating work groups around how do we provide for emergency response for the city. So I'm, in terms of my priority right now is not digging into the budget of an organization that has been shuttered by the governor. It is providing emergency response to the community, because I think that is our top priority.
That's really good. That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is, when you're in a situation like this, or even prior to kind of an emergent need that's happening currently, you're one of the youngest city council persons. I think we could say that, correct?
Yeah.
And you have,
I'll let you say it. Thank you.
And you have, a young family. How do you come about to making decisions on what you're going to support and what you're not going to support? What is your strategy when it comes to that?
I think that's like the $20 million question
Right.
for any elected official. I think, my personal method is to just have a very strong set of morals that guide kind of my compass. And I grew up here. A lot of people know me. There's no sheltering and separating my reputation as a person from my operation on the council. So I think, in large part, I think about what kind of world we're going to be leaving for my kids. I was blessed to grow up here during a time of relative prosperity, to be perfectly honest. And I want to kind of continue that prosperity for as broad a set of people in Rochester, so that their children kind of enjoy the same sort of childhood I grew up with. And so that, maybe selfishly, my children can enjoy that same sort of opportunity, because it's not easy. And we've been very lucky as a community for a very long time to have very supportive business environment, whether that's the Mayo Clinic, if that was IBM, if that's different organizations that have stepped up throughout history, providing opportunities that have allowed reinvestment into our community. And so I see that as, our call to action for I'll call myself the next generation, and I don't know, maybe I'm in between generations, but the call to action for those people who want to step up and lead is look at what was left and try and make it better. And I think, it's easy to say in broad strokes, and then you get down to like actual decisions. And I try and, when I first ran, I will tell you, I thought the world was all black and white and that I always had the right answer to everything. Mm-hmm. And what I've realized is you gotta work to understand all these perspectives. And there was probably a set of people who thought when I first ran that, they didn't want to talk to me. Nick's not going to listen to my perspective. And I think hopefully throughout my actions and through my term in office, I think a lot of people have understood that that's just not how I operate. I'm a pretty logical person, so you have to kind of come to me with some rational arguments and talk to me about where you're at. But I think overall, I try and be approachable by everyone, and that community input, maybe what's making it so hard with this coronavirus is that way that I gather that community input of going out and talking to people has kind of been halted. So you'll see, and I think maybe on my Facebook page, we started transitioning to digital town halls and stuff like that to try and keep people feeling engaged throughout the process. I just think that there's a lot that we need to do. But as a response to the government, we're going to set aside anything that's really not COVID-19 related that we can set aside right now, because it's too much to ask of a population that's on edge, frankly, to do the sort of public engagement, to get really invested into things and changes that are taking place at City Hall. So I think we've got a temporary pause. We're going to have to feel out, frankly, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, what this kind of evolving situation is going to feel like, and then probably be responsive to that. And you're going to kind of continue to see the way I make decisions, probably at its core, if it's something about one of my morals, that's probably going to be set. But as we work to find out, what should the budget look like, how should our priorities be, you're going to find me a lot more amenable to how do we use our priorities and our budget and our decision making as supportive of the response to COVID-19. I think that's going to be, this is our biggest challenge as a community in decades, probably since we had the Great Flood and had to build the flood control. we probably not had another sort of situation that will be quite as pervasively impactful for our community as COVID-19. So it's a great time. And if I can put a plug in, anyone who fancies themselves as a leader or doesn't and sees something that needs to be done, we're going to need you, and we're going to need your help. We're going to need you to get invested in your community. And if you're looking for a way to engage, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we will find a way to put your skills to work. So your community needs you. It needs you now, just like hopefully it will need you for generations. So please don't wait to get involved.
That's a really great call to action. And certainly people are wanting to help right now. That's very apparent. Yeah. I think just getting to a point to assimilate that is going to be the, definite next step. So I was at a meeting one time and I heard, and it's in relation to prioritizing, I heard you say to somebody that was threatening to not vote for you if you didn't vote a certain way, then next time if you run, you said, well, either way, another group is not going to vote for me if I vote a certain way, and if I vote your way, so how do you mitigate when people kind of throw that back at you? I mean, it's like you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't, right? So how do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, you're a representative, you need to listen. I think by the time it's gotten to the threat of I'm not going to vote for you, people are getting really emotionally involved in what the argument is or whatever is at play. What I try and remember is I have to be able to live with myself and sleep with myself and go home and face my family. And so it's always important for me that I use that as the foundation for what I'm deciding and how I'm going forward is what's best for the community. And if I believe it, people elected me because of who I am. They elected me not to just be a tabulator of everyone's opinion in the community. They elected me because I can represent an opinion. They elected me because they might only be interested in one particular facet of one particular problem, but I'm there every single day looking at 100 facets of 1,000 problems. And so being able to see the system and being able to understand the relationships of all the parts, that is something that if you're there for a single meeting, or if you're there for a single topic in a single meeting, it's really hard to understand how our transit policy and our parking policy and our affordable housing and all these things are interrelated. And if you start making very specific minor changes in one particular area where for one particular constituency, you can have tremendous impact on someone that wasn't even at that meeting, didn't have an opportunity to weigh in because they didn't think you would do something so disruptive to them. So there's a lot of these pieces that as a representative, as someone who just loves the community and also understands its complexity, as you get seeped in it, as you live it, as you study it, as you look at what other communities are doing, you start to see emerging relationships that you just have to be aware of in order to make kind of a well-reasoned response. So I listen. I think that's incumbent, is that we pick up the phone, whether someone's telling me how great I am or they're screaming at me about some decision they disagree with. I pick up the phone and you can talk to me and we will talk about what it is you think and you'll get my opinion. And I think that isn't a substitute for using my rationale and using my brain and using my thought process when we're voting. That's a complement to that, goes into supporting the decision or to influencing the decision, but it can't become your decision. Otherwise, you'll lose kind of a lot of that impact you can have as you build kind of systems that work together.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good segue to the next thing that I wanted to cover. What are the top issues right now in Rochester? Other than COVID-19,
yeah, I was gonna say
some of these other things can't necessarily be shelved, right? Or are things being shelved totally right now? I mean, what are the top issues?
I will say that if you had this conversation with me a week ago, I'd probably tell you very, very different priorities. I would have said things like transit, things like parking that our community are very, very focused on. I would say affordable housing. These are the things that everyone knows, and those things aren't not important. So I want to be very blunt. Those are important things that we need to work on as a community. But it's, 100% effort right now is on COVID-19 and preparing our community for the response. And we're working in a bit of a reduced capacity as people start to work from home that maybe have never done that. I mean, our workforce, 1,000 plus at the city, are starting to figure out how to transition and manage that. So, what are our priorities for the remainder of the year? I mean, my priority is really coming down to like by week. My priority right now is to get everyone in place to be prepared, and then next week it'll be how are we responding and watching the curve. If we can stay ahead of the curve, we may come out of this and everyone might point at Nick and say, you overreacted. And I hope that they have the opportunity to do that. And I hope that that's the outcome and that everyone says Nick overreacted. But for right now, I don't have a whole lot of priorities besides preparing for COVID-19. And I think beyond that, we're taking some serious looks at a first kind of go around of the budget that tries to be respectful of the fact that we don't know what the economic condition of the community is going to be like on the other side of this impending kind of wave of challenges we're about to face. So that's really, I think, where all our hearts are at is we want to maintain what services we have. We want people to be safe. We want them to have food security. We want people that are running small businesses to have some stability as much as we can offer during this time. And then we want to weather. That's really what the city's setting up for, is how do we help everyone know we're here, we're in it together, we're going to make it through this. What's the best footing we can put people on to do that? And I think it's hard for me to even think about the rest of the functioning right now because I'm so absorbed in that. I'm so focused. So I think we'll have this immediate response. And what you're asking, if you ask me again in a month, we'll have a first take at what our kind of immediate kind of second responder, I've heard it called, the second responder impact of what kind of projects do we need to set up? Is it something with like homeless shelter, supportive soup kitchen, whatever it is, to take care of the second phase? And then there's going to be third phase stuff, which is into the end of this year that we need to figure out how to do. So everything's on the table is what I'll tell you. Everything's on the table. We're reprioritizing everything, and we're getting on the footing to be ready to act in a dynamic fashion as this kind of emerges.
So I take it no city council meetings?
We've canceled we have pended the cancellation of the study sessions. The way the continuity of operations works for the city is I think one council member has to be in the chamber, and the rest of us can join remotely. I don't know what my colleagues' feeling is on that. I mean, I will tell you from my perspective, it was really hard to participate remotely in the council meeting. And if you watched, I was delayed by several seconds on most votes because of the audio time. But I think, we have to be serious. I mean, it's a serious issue, and asking people to come out and congregate at a council meeting just seems very out of sync with what we're asking the rest of society to do.
What are your thoughts around connecting the specific entities, sectors in an appropriate way to support city measures? Like, how are you going to connect with people? What resources and tools are you going to use? Are you going to use social media? What are those tools that you're going to use so that you can stay connected since you're not meeting in person?
Yeah, so I think for sure you will see, it hasn't been on hiatus, but with the birth of my third child, we've been, there's no staff behind the city council persons at this local level. So the Facebook page has been a little bit slower to update. I'm taking all the effort I was putting into constituent meetings and trying to get out on Facebook more, trying to use that to, point people at resources, to, drum up support for things like the blood donorship and for giving, working and working with our local business community. I think that the entirety of the effort will be bolstered because of electronic, the communities that are cropping up on electronic media, whether that's Zoom or that's Facebook or that's Twitter, whatever it is. Like, we have to leverage those things because that's our safety net, and that's how we can be certain we'll have that continuity. I'll be leveraging it to reach out to people as the city makes announcements, as things happen. one, we're getting huge benefit in what has been a really changed disposition to social media from our local government in the last, say, 2 years. They're more out on it. So like we're all benefiting from the fact that the city is more engaged on social media. But you'll continue to see my operations, my day-to-day kind of management style of city affairs, all going to be digital. You'll be able to reach me on the phone, just like people always have, but also via messaging on Facebook and other things. So
and now I have direct access to your Skype.
Yes, Skype.
So.
Yeah, you'll for sure be able to do it. I don't spend a lot of time on Skype, so I appreciate that it's there. But we do, I try and be as available as possible. So hopefully people aren't finding that as a problem. But any of those kind of existing avenues, I get a lot of contacts already. So I'm expecting that will just continue to increase as people look to figure out how to get engaged. I mean, you're absolutely right. People want to be engaged, and I'm so happy to already see that response. That's what gives me the passion I have to kind of go out day after day and get kind of hammered down by some of the challenges we face trying to get through the crisis. But people showing up out of nowhere and saying, how can I help? That's, a breath of fresh air. That's, I signed up for this. I think people being willing to marshal themselves and their resources, that's the sort of thing that continues to kind of give us all the motivation to reach out and to stay engaged and keep grinding on something that is going to be a long-term effort.
Great message to convey. Okay, here's the big question. What Netflix show are you binge watching right now? Do you even have time?
I will say I read a lot on my cell phone while I'm rocking my 4-month-old.
Okay, that makes sense.
And in terms of shows we're watching, we watched Frozen 2, we've watched WALL-E, and I am watching the Kids Baking Championship with my 2 kids. We've been watching that. It's on Hulu, I think. We've been watching a lot of that as they kind of work out their culinary expertise. And from what I'm hearing upstairs right now, it sounds like we might be having a live airing of that in our kitchen right now between my 2 children trying to make lunch. So
yeah, well, I'm definitely looking forward to that, and hopefully it tastes okay.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Nick. So thankful to have you on the show. This is Danielle Teal with Our Town at KSMQ Public Television, and you can listen to this anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thank you.
Our Town is produced by KSMQ Public Television, nonprofit, non-commercial. Please help pay for this programming by making a personal contribution at ksmq.org. Thank you.
Funding for the Our Town podcast is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota, and the members of KSMQ Public Television. Thank you.